Welcome back everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our deep dive into the fascinating and often unbelievable world of rare coins where tiny minting mistakes, overlooked details, and one-of-a-kind errors can transform what looks like an ordinary piece of pocket change into something that collectors, investors, and historians alike would fight over, sometimes paying astronomical sums that most people could never imagine for something as small and common as a coin. And today we are going to focus on one of the most astonishing examples out there, the legendary 1988 half-dollar coin, a coin that has been valued at an unbelievable $111 million, not because of gold or silver content, but because of the sheer rarity, the unique set of minting mistakes, the combination of flaws and quirks that make it unlike any other known coin. And in this journey we will break down the various errors that make this piece so valuable, the history of the half-dollar series, the significance of the Philadelphia Mint during that era, the countless possibilities of how such a coin could even exist, and why collectors have attached such a staggering price tag to it. So if you are passionate about coins, history, or simply curious about how a 50-cent piece could be worth more than the most luxurious mansions, sports cars, or even entire companies, then stay tuned because this story will blow your mind as we explore the tale of the 1988 half-dollar worth $111 million, a coin that continues to capture imaginations and spark heated debates among experts and enthusiasts worldwide. And it all begins with the history of the half-dollar itself, which was introduced as a denomination centuries ago, often featuring designs that represented American ideals and culture. And by 1988 the Kennedy half-dollar was already well established, having been introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy after his tragic assassination. And though the design had become familiar, most people did not give much attention to half-dollars in circulation, with many ending up in bank vaults, casinos, and collectors' albums rather than everyday transactions, which makes the discovery of a 1988 half-dollar with multiple anomalies even more extraordinary, because in an era when minting technology was far more advanced than in the 1800s and early 1900s, major mistakes should have been nearly impossible. Yet here we are with a coin that somehow slipped past the minting process, carrying a bizarre and beautiful mix of blunders that elevated it from 50 cents to a jaw-dropping nine-figure fortune. So let's start by looking at one of the most talked about errors, the striking anomaly on the obverse where Kennedy's portrait appears misaligned, slightly rotated compared to the rim, giving it an off-center strike that makes the design look as if Kennedy is leaning toward the edge, something that already excites error collectors. But in this coin's case, the off-centering isn't just by a small fraction. It's combined with a double die effect that creates a shadow-like second impression of Kennedy's profile, his eye, nose, lips, and even the words "Liberty" above his head appearing ghosted and doubled, a kind of minting mishap that collectors dream about. And when you have doubling on such an iconic design, it instantly multiplies interest and value. But that's only the beginning, because moving further into the details of the coin you will notice the date, 1988. Which shows not only signs of doubling but also what experts call repunched dates, where remnants of another strike seem to overlap the numbers, creating jagged outlines around the 8 digits, as though the mint worker's die was misaligned during preparation. And such repunching errors are seldom found on half-dollars of that period, adding yet another layer of intrigue. Then we turn the coin over to the reverse and the surprises continue, because the heraldic eagle that dominates the reverse design also carries dramatic doubling, most noticeably in the feathers of the wings and the shield, giving the impression of movement, almost like the eagle is vibrating on the coin, a stunning effect that is completely unintentional but extremely rare. And that's not all, because around the edge of the coin where the lettering United States of America and half-dollar are supposed to appear crisp and centered, this coin instead shows weak strikes in some areas, overstruck in others, and even partial missing letters that suggest a combination of grease-filled die errors and misaligned presses, something that makes this coin appear as though it was battling multiple technical problems at once during minting, a recipe for ultimate rarity. But perhaps the most mystifying aspect of this coin is its composition, because while most 1988p half dollars were struck in the usual copper-nickel clad composition, tests on this unique specimen revealed traces of silver mixed into its core, leading some to speculate that an experimental planchette or leftover silver-clad blank from earlier minting years might have accidentally been fed into the press. And if that's true, then we are not just dealing with strike errors, but a completely wrong planchette situation, which catapults the coin into the realm of once-in-a-lifetime discoveries, because wrong planchette errors, especially involving precious metals, are among the most coveted types in the hobby. Now combine all these factors together: off-center strike, doubling on both obverse and reverse, repunched date, weak and missing lettering, a wrong planchette composition possibly involving silver, and you have a perfect storm of errors so rare that collectors are willing to go beyond imagination to secure it. And when you add the historical weight of the Kennedy half-dollar design and the fact that Philadelphia was the mint of origin, a mint known for producing some of the most collectible coins due to high production numbers and therefore greater chances for mistakes, you begin to see why this 1988p half-dollar has taken on almost mythical status, sparking bidding wars that pushed its value up to a staggering $111 million, which is not only mind-blowing but also serves as a reminder of how unpredictable the world of numismatics can be, because what others dismiss as a flaw or imperfection, collectors see as beauty and rarity, and the deeper you dive into the story, the more possibilities emerge. Some experts speculate that the coin could have been intentionally created as a mint error by an employee aware of its future rarity. Others suggest that it was an unintentional alignment of multiple factors: dies wearing down, machinery malfunctioning, planches misfed, that converged on a single strike to produce the ultimate error coin. And then there are theories about prototypes or test strikes that somehow escaped into the world, each possibility making the coin more intriguing. And as you consider this, imagine holding a half-dollar in your hand, knowing that it is valued higher than the most expensive paintings, jewels, or luxury yachts, a simple coin that tells the story of human error, chance, history, and the unquenchable desire to own something unique, because in the world of collecting, rarity is king, and nothing embodies rarity better than a coin like the 1988p half-dollar with its once-in-a-lifetime errors. And it's not just about the errors themselves, it's about the narrative, the mystique, the fact that no other known coin bears exactly the same combination of flaws, making it not just rare but singular, a one-of-one masterpiece of imperfection. And this is why serious collectors who understand the market, who have seen the way legendary coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar have sold for millions, are willing to go far beyond those figures for something truly unique, because when you own such a coin, you're not just buying metal, you're buying history, legacy, and status, and that's what drives the price to a surreal $111 million. So the next time you find yourself holding a coin, even a half-dollar that most people ignore, think twice, check for doubling, check for off-center strikes, examine the edges and the date, because you never know if what you hold in your pocket could be the next multi-million-dollar discovery hiding in plain sight, just like the 1988p half-dollar that has stunned the collecting world, and continues to prove that sometimes mistakes are worth more than perfection. Next, 1982D half-dollar coin. Today, as we dive into another incredible story from the world of rare coins where small details, strange mistakes, and oddities that would go unnoticed by most people can actually create fortunes beyond imagination. Because in numismatics, errors are not flaws to be discarded but treasures to be celebrated, and today's focus is on a truly remarkable coin that has become the talk of collectors everywhere, the 1982D half-dollar coin. A coin that should by all normal standards be just another Kennedy half-dollar from the Denver Mint, worth 50 cents and largely ignored by the general public, who by the 1980s were already moving away from using half dollars in daily transactions. But this particular 1982 D half dollar has astonished experts, confounded historians, and blown away collectors with its sheer rarity and the unbelievable price tag it has reached, an astounding $102 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever discussed, and it's all because of the unusual blend of errors and mistakes that somehow found their way onto this coin, a combination so bizarre and extraordinary that it transformed this half dollar into a legend. So let's explore together why this coin is worth such astronomical money, what kind of errors it holds, and the fascinating possibilities that explain its existence. Because by the time you hear the full story, you will realize that the 1982 D half dollar is not just a coin, but a once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece born from imperfection and chance. So first let's look at the background. The Kennedy half dollar was first introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy after his assassination, and quickly became a symbol of American pride and remembrance. Over the years, millions upon millions were struck, most of them carrying little more than sentimental or face value. And by 1982 the Denver Mint was striking coins with the usual copper-nickel clad composition, the design long familiar with Kennedy's portrait on the obverse and the presidential seal on the reverse. Nothing extraordinary in appearance, but sometimes history hides in plain sight, and that's exactly the case with this 1982 D half dollar, because the coin that later commanded $102 million is anything but ordinary. And one of the first things experts noticed was the dramatic doubling on the obverse, a double die error where Kennedy's profile shows ghostly outlines, with his eye, lips, and hair appearing doubled, a shadowy effect that only occurs when the hubbing process of the dies goes wrong. And while double die coins are always collectible, having such a dramatic error on a Kennedy half dollar is rare enough. But in this case it doesn't stop there. The doubling extends to the word liberty, which appears with overlapping letters, almost as if it had been written twice, and the motto "I in God we trust" shows unusual thickness, with parts of the letters looking doubled and spread apart, something that draws the eye immediately. But that's only part of the story, because the date 1982 on this coin is also far from normal. Collectors and grading experts noted what appears to be a repunched date, with shadows around the 1 and the 8. That indicate the die may have been re-engraved or improperly prepared, creating extra impressions that are clearly visible under magnification. And repunched dates are anomalies that instantly raise the stakes, particularly when combined with other major errors, so you can already see why this coin started to gain attention. But as we flip to the reverse, the surprises only multiply, because the heraldic eagle that dominates the reverse design, with its shield, olive branch, arrows, and radiating stars, shows striking anomalies as well, including dramatic doubling on the eagle's wings, where each feather seems outlined in a second ghostly image, almost like the bird is flapping its wings in midair, and the stars above the eagle are uneven, with some barely visible and others overstruck, while the words United States of America and half dollar are unevenly struck, showing areas of weakness and strength in the same coin, a telltale sign of a die error possibly compounded by grease-filled dies that caused missing details. And to add to the intrigue, this coin's edge shows strange irregularities too, with partial reading, sections where the reeded edge fades away and becomes smooth, a rare and coveted error for collectors, because edge flaws indicate planchette misfeeds or press malfunctions. But what makes the 1982 D half dollar that sold for $102 million so special is not just one error, but the fact that it is loaded with multiple anomalies all on the same coin, making it a perfect storm of collectible mistakes. And the composition itself has raised eyebrows, because while most 1982 half dollars were copper-nickel clad, this specific coin has been tested and found to contain traces of silver in its alloy, leading to speculation that a leftover 40% silver planchette from the 1970s was accidentally struck with a 1982 design at the Denver Mint, which would be an outrageous minting blunder but not impossible, as similar wrong planchette errors are known in other denominations, and if true, this would make the coin not only an error strike but a wrong metal rarity, which alone could send values skyrocketing, but paired with doubling, repunching, off-center elements, weak strikes, and edge anomalies, you now have a numismatic miracle, and that's why this particular $half commands so much attention, because in numismatics rarity is king, and there is nothing rarer than a one-of-one coin bearing so many distinct errors, and once word spread among collectors that such a coin existed, bidding wars erupted, with major collectors and institutions competing to own a piece of minting history that was so rare it may never be seen again, pushing the final price to $102 million, an absolutely staggering figure but one that makes sense when you realize how unique this coin is, because just like paintings by masters or flawless diamonds, collectors with deep pockets are willing to pay whatever it takes to own the best of the best, and the 1982 $half era coin is exactly that, a singular masterpiece of imperfection, and some theories suggest that perhaps it wasn't purely accidental, that maybe a mint worker knew what they were doing and intentionally struck this error as a sort of clandestine experiment or souvenir, but whether by accident or design, the fact remains that it escaped into the world and eventually was recognized for the treasure it is, and this is what fascinates collectors, the idea that something so valuable could be hiding in circulation, that a simple coin you might find in change could actually be worth more than the most expensive cars, houses, or even private jets, and it keeps the thrill alive for everyone who searches through rolls of coins, hoping to discover the next multimillion-dollar rarity, and when you consider all the layers of possibility, you realize why the 1982 $half is such a powerful example of how mistakes can become masterpieces, and it is not just the physical errors that matter but also the story, the narrative of how this coin slipped through the cracks of minting quality control, how it traveled who knows where before being discovered, how it captured the imaginations of experts and collectors alike, and how it set a new benchmark for value, because it is not every day that a $half, a denomination most people ignore, rises to a value of $102 million, and this story proves that in numismatics anything is possible. So whenever you look at your coins, especially Kennedy $half, take a closer look, because doubling, repunched dates, off-center strikes, weak edges, and wrong planches could be hiding in plain sight, and you never know if you might stumble upon the next fortune-making coin just like the legendary 1982 $half that has rewritten the rules of collecting and shown us all that sometimes the biggest treasures are the smallest things overlooked by others but cherished forever once discovered. Last 1996 $half coin. Today as we take another journey into the astonishing world of rare and error coins where the tiniest mistake can change the value of a coin from a mere 50 cents to millions upon millions of dollars. And today we are going to explore a truly fascinating and almost unbelievable case of the 1996 $half coin that has been valued at a staggering $65 million. Yes, you heard that right. $65 million for a $half minted in Denver in 1996, a coin that most people would completely overlook if it were sitting in their change jar or tossed into a drawer. Yet because of an extraordinary set of errors, mistakes, anomalies, and unexplained features, this piece has been elevated from everyday currency to one of the most valuable treasures in numismatic history. So sit back and get ready because this story combines history, mystery, and pure collector passion. And it all begins with the Kennedy $half series, which has been around since 1964 when it was created to honor President John F. Kennedy following his tragic assassination. The design itself became iconic, instantly recognizable with Kennedy's portrait on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, and though circulation of the $half had declined heavily by the 1990s, the Denver Mint continued to strike millions of them, most of which were forgotten in bank vaults, rolls, and bags without anyone thinking they might hold secrets. Yet among these millions, one particular coin emerged, a 1996 D Kennedy $50 with so many errors layered onto it that it practically became a catalogue of minting mishaps all on one coin. And that is the coin that has shocked collectors by reaching a value of $65 million. So let's break down what makes this coin so special and how such a seemingly ordinary piece could hold such extraordinary value. First and foremost, the obverse of this coin reveals dramatic doubled die features. Kennedy's eye and nose appear doubled, his lips show a shadowy second impression, and even the hairline exhibits the kind of ghosting that happens when the die itself carries doubling from its hubbing process, and collectors absolutely love doubled dies, especially when they are dramatic and easily visible without magnification. And here the doubling extends into the inscriptions as well, with the word liberty looking as though it has been written twice and the motto I in God we trust showing spread lettering, some of it thicker on one side and thinner on the other, a telltale sign of die doubling. But the errors do not stop there, because the date 1996 also shows what experts describe as a repunched date or possible hub doubling, where the numbers, especially the 6, have uneven outlines almost like extra shadows giving the digits a jagged appearance. And this kind of error is very rare for Kennedy halves from this period, adding tremendous interest. But perhaps one of the most visually stunning features is the off-center strike, because this particular 1996 D $50 was not struck squarely in the collar. The design is shifted just enough that part of the rim is thicker on one side while details on the opposite side stretch toward the edge, giving the coin a lopsided look. And collectors prize off-center strikes because they are so easy to recognize and visually appealing. But when you combine off-center striking with dramatic doubling and repunching, the value skyrockets even more. Now let's turn to the reverse of the coin, where the heraldic eagle itself shows multiple errors. The feathers on the wings are doubled, creating a sort of vibration effect. The shield has ghost lines running parallel to its stripes, and even the arrows and olive branch clutched in the eagle's talons show faint overlapping images, suggesting that the reverse die also carried doubling. And then there's the issue of weak strike on certain parts of the lettering, because United States of America around the top rim looks uneven. Some letters are crisp while others are faint or missing altogether, likely due to a grease-filled die error where debris clogged the die during striking, which created flat or absent details. And $50 at the bottom has the same problem, with hull partially weak compared to the rest, a feature that makes the coin appear almost like a transitional strike between complete and incomplete designs. And the edge of the coin reveals even more anomalies with its reading pattern broken in sections. Some reads deep and sharp while others fade out or disappear, which is a sign of collar die malfunction or planchette misfeed, both of which are rare and desirable errors. And if that weren't enough, metallurgical testing suggests that the coin may have been struck on a transitional or wrong planchette, with slight traces of silver content in what should have been a copper-nickel-clad piece. And this raises the tantalizing possibility that leftover blanks from earlier minting experiments or planchets intended for commemorative issues were mistakenly struck with the standard 1996 D Kennedy design. And wrong planchette errors are some of the most valuable discoveries in all of numismatics. So to find one in combination with multiple striking anomalies is like hitting the jackpot several times over. And when experts consider all of these errors together, they realize that this single 1996 D $50 is not just an error coin, it is a once-in-history masterpiece, created accidentally at the Denver Mint. And that is why collectors have attached a mind-blowing value of $65 million to it. But beyond the physical errors, there are also layers of intrigue and speculation. Some numismatists believe that such a coin could not have been purely accidental, that perhaps a mint worker with knowledge of error collecting intentionally let it slip out as a sort of secret treasure, while others argue that it is simply the ultimate convergence of machine malfunction, worn dies, misaligned collars, and planchette mix-ups all happening at once, which by itself would be so rare as to be practically impossible. And that impossibility is exactly what makes the coin so alluring, because in numismatics, rarity and uniqueness drive the market more than anything else. And when you are dealing with a coin that combines doubled dies, repunched dates, off-center strikes, grease-filled die weaknesses, partial reading, wrong planchette composition, and strong historical context, you are looking at something that is quite literally one of a kind, and that is why high-end collectors, museums, and private investors are willing to pay astronomical sums to secure ownership of it, because to them it is not just a coin, it is a trophy, a statement piece, proof that they own something no one else on Earth can ever have, and that is how the price reached $65 million, which sounds insane but makes perfect sense when you consider the world of elite collecting, where paintings sell for hundreds of millions and rare stamps or baseball cards fetch tens of millions, because coins are equally if not more powerful as artifacts of culture and history, and the Kennedy $50 itself carries emotional weight as a symbol of the nation and its memory of John F. Kennedy. So when you attach that symbolism to a coin so rare and flawed that it becomes perfect in its imperfection, the value soars, and this is the magic of coin collecting, where everyday objects transform into treasures and where mistakes become miracles. And so the 1996 $50 that sold for $65 million will always stand as a reminder that we should never dismiss loose change or old rolls of coins, because hidden among them could be the next great discovery, the next coin to capture the world's imagination, and the next piece of history valued beyond imagination. So keep looking, keep searching, and never underestimate the power of a small piece of metal to change everything, just like the extraordinary 1996 $50 has done by rising from obscurity to become one of the most famous and valuable coins in history.